Okay, next we're going to do a 3-zone firewall configuration, which what this means, looking at the diagram, we have the LAN zone attached to this interface, the internet zone to that interface, and we're going to consider that tunnel 12 to be our, let's say, tunnel 12 to be our WAN zone, or whatever the name is. We're going to assume that this tunnel 12 is like towards a third party, let's say a company, that we use that tunnel to exchange some information back and forth. And what we want is, we want to be able to go from the LAN out on the WAN and access this FTP server. That's going to be the FTP server, and this is going to be my FTP client. Now, the FTP server can run in, so we have something which is called FTP active and FTP passive. And it's very simple to know which one works how, because both of them, FTP active and FTP passive, refers to the mode that the FTP server runs into. The client is going to obey to what the mode of the server. So the server is going to run in active mode or passive mode, which means the client is going to take action and run in the same mode. So the server controls the mode, not the client. Now FTP, it's another protocol which has two sessions, a control plane session and a data plane session. So what happens is that initially the control plane session is going to be built. It always works, is going to be a TCP session, TCP, with a destination of port 21. The control plane session works on TCP destination port 21. What happens over the control plane session is that the client authenticates the server and reads the directory, the FTP directory. And then when the client wants to download something from the FTP server, if the FTP server runs in active mode, it means that the transfer session, so the data plane session, if the server runs in active mode, is going to be initiated by the FTP server back to the client. Because if the FTP server runs in active mode, he's going to actively open the data plane session, the transfer session. If the FTP server runs in passive mode, it means that the client initiates, and something else which is also important. So if the FTP server runs in active mode, which means the server initiates the data plane session, the transfer session back to the client, is going to do that with a TCP source port of 20. So the FTP server is going to initiate a transfer session from a source port of 20. If the FTP server runs in passive mode, it means that the server listens for the data plane session, which means the client is going to initiate the transfer session, the data plane session, the transfer session, back to the server. And this is going to be a session with TCP source random, TCP destination random. But how does the client know what is the destination random port number? Is because in the control plane session, which is going to be, let's say I'm going to use a color of blue. So how does the client know how to which destination random port number to initiate the data plane session? Is that in the control plane session, which that's always initiated by the client in the control plane session, in that negotiation process, the server has told the client on which destination random port number to start the data plane session. So it's simple. If the server runs in active mode, he's going to initiate the transfer session with a source port number of TCP 20. If the server runs in passive mode, it means he's going to listen to the data plane session, which means the client initiates that. And how does the client know to which destination port number to send that data plane traffic out to? Is that in the control plane negotiation, the server told the client, hey, connect to me on this destination port number, which is going to be a random port number within a specific range, of course, but it's not going to be on TCP port 20. So let's initially make the server run in passive mode. Let's make the server run in passive mode, which means that both the control plane session, and the data plane session are initiated by the client, and both of them are TCP, which means that as long as I have a firewall policy saying that from the LAN to the internet, from the LAN to the WAN zone, not internet, from the LAN to the WAN zone, we inspect TCP, session is going to work. So let's do that to begin with. So let's go on router 1, build the new zone of WAN, zone security, WAN. Configure a firewall policy from LAN to WAN to inspect TCP. Let's go in here in Notepad, and let's say class map, type inspect, CMap for TCP. The default is going to be a default of match all. I don't care because I'm going to have a single match statement, match protocol TCP. Then I say policy map, pmap, and it's going to be a policy map to be applied from LAN to WAN. I say policy map type inspect, of course. I say class map type inspect my class map, and I'm saying for that traffic I want the firewall to inspect traffic. Then I create a zone pair. So first command was zone security WAN. Then I say zone pair security. Name it ZP from LAN to WAN. Traffic source from the LAN zone. Destination the WAN zone. So if traffic flows in that direction, I'm gonna inspect traffic. I'm gonna tell the router to do what this policy map states. Service policy type inspect this. And the last step is to go on that tunnel, interface tunnel 12, and attach that interface to the WAN zone. So remember, security WAN. Let's put that configuration in there on router 1. Probably didn't work because I had a space in there. Policy map, that class map, and then inspect. Do show run policy map. The command is class, right? Class type inspect. So let's paste that again. Class map type inspect match all. That is the proper configuration. So class map, it is correct. Policy map, it is correct. Zone pair, it is correct. And tunnel, and it is correct. So now let's try, and so let's now initiate that FTP session from PCA over to server A. Let's start the FTP server to begin with, and let's make it run in passive mode. Server A. Server runs in active mode in here. Edit settings. Let's make sure the server listens for the control plane on port 21. And it does. And as I stated, let's make this to run in passive mode. So I'm going to say server and declick active. Well, not there, it's inactive. Let's make the server run in passive mode. It's going to be edit settings. And it should be a setting in here to make the server run in passive mode. Passive mode settings. Okay, let's go on PCA, start the FTP client. And let's say let's go on the server and say edit settings. Let's put the directory to be users. So let's create a user. Let's say remove for the moment, and let's say add a user. So the client is going to get authenticated with the username of CISCO. Okay. The password for that user is going to be CISCO. And shared folders, let's say add. And let's go to, let's say, lab files. TFTP server. And let's say OK. And if we look in lab files, TFTP server, we're going to copy via FTP, let's say the file name tftpd32.exe. But before that, let's make sure that the server runs in passive mode. Transfer type, auto server. There has to be a setting to make this run in passive mode. Security settings, no. Speed limits, IP binding, general settings. So it looks like the server supports, the server supports both modes. Let's try and connect from the client. The control plane essentially should work. So let's say host 172.16. Before we do this, we have to do one more change because server A is default gateway. It's not router 2, which is not of that 2. Server A's default gateway is ASA. Let's go on server A and make the default gateway to be router 2. One more change, real fast. On server A, let's make the default gateway of server A to be router 2. Because otherwise, of course, the transfer is gonna fail completely. So manage network connections. Right click on the lab interface, properties, TCP IPv4 properties, and then we're gonna make it the default gateway to be .2 router 2. Close. Let's make sure we can ping the default gateway, or let's say just ipconfig/all to make sure that the default gateway was changed successfully. And it was changed. That's my default gateway. Let's make sure I can ping it. And there we go. Let's go on PCA. Connect to the server 172.16.10.100. Username Cisco. Password Cisco. and let's say quick connect. Not remember passwords, okay. So I got connected, and there we go. I see the directory on the remote side. I see the shared folder from server A. So the control plane session has succeeded. Let's verify that on the firewall part. So if we say show, let's say on debug all, because I had debug policy firewall TCP on debug all, and let's say show policy firewall sessions zone pair ZP LAN to WAN. And there you go. We have the control plane session built, which states traffic from. Of course, it matched on my class map TCP as expected, because that's my only class map in this zone pair, class map TCP. And it stated that traffic was initiated from PCA and destined to server A on port 21, a control plane session. And the session is established. Now let's try and transfer. Going on PCA, let's click on any of those two files. Let's click on the exe file and try to transfer it. Download. Transfer finished. Let's try and transfer something larger, because otherwise, oh, there we go. I still see the, so let's try to transfer something bigger, because otherwise I'm not going to see the session in the state table, because transfer was successful, but as soon as the session was closed, the transfer session was closed, then the zone-based firewall is going to see the FINAX, and it's going to kill the session from the state table. So let's try to transfer something larger, actually. So let's go on the FTP server in here and change the shared folder, edit users, change the shared folder to be something that we can transfer something larger than that, remove, say add. Lab files, let's look on the Cisco AnyConnect client. Okay. And now if we connect again from the client, quick connect, establish connection in a new tab, abort previous connection and connecting current tab, okay. Let's kill this actually, because it didn't got refresh. I want to make sure I connect and I see the new shared folder. So it's the FTP server 172.16.10.100, Cisco, and say quick connect. And here we go, I see the new shared folder. Now let's try to transfer something larger, like this, which is like 21 megs or something. And let's prepare in here the command to see the transfer session in the state table, in the sessions table of the zone-based policy firewall. So let's right click and say download. And as you can see, I'm running in passive mode, because this is the data plane session, the transfer session, where the client PCA initiated traffic with source random port number, and traffic was destined to server A on a destination random port number likewise. So as you can see, it worked because traffic, both the data plane session and the control plane session, were initiated by PCA, and both sessions, because both of them were TCP, both of them were flowing in the direction of my inspection. Both of them were TCP, so that's why it worked.